This daf Yom Yerushalmi Challah in the article Oz V'Hadar edition on daf Mem Dalet Amud Aleph. Halkech Min Anachnom, the second line down, which in the Vilna is on Chavav Amud Aleph, the fourth line down. There's actually two dots at the end of the line before. Halkech Min Hanachnom. So we left Rabbi Yoshia a little bit difficult. We'll come back to it in a minute. Why did the question was Rabbi Yoshia did not allow Rabbi Gamliel to make a gzeira to the Mai in Syria, and because then the Kohanim will have to be chasha chalasan, the Kohanim won't be able to eat their challah because they have to take off the Mai from it, and therefore he didn't want to let him make the whole gzeira of the Mai. The question is why not? We said Emas Kachim Ha'Ma'aretz, he's not going to give challah which is not Mesukon. We didn't answer yet. So, but right now we're going back to Eretz Yisrael. I'm talking about Eretz Yisrael. What happens in Eretz Yisrael? We'll come back to Syria in a few minutes. And we would say, anytime we say Halokeach Minanachta Min Isha She Osalim Karbashuk. If you buy a dough, bread from a baker, from a woman who's not making for herself, but to sell in the marketplace. You have to take off chalas d'mai, meaning you have to take off d'mai from the challah. Challah itself needs to have shumas d'mai to take it off. So we'll talk about Eretz Yisrael, where the takon of d'mai was enacted. Balabais, if you're taking it from a balabais or misarech, it's from misarech, or you're a guest balabais, and it's not chalas d'mai. You don't have to take off chalas d'mai. Said, "B'misarech it's solely so." Well, that says somebody if you're a guest while buys eat from his bay, you don't have to take out the money from the challah. That's because you're a guest. Misarech it's so. But if you're a purchaser, I guess he runs a restaurant or something like that. You're eating in his restaurant, so then you do have to take a challah money. Then you're not exempt. Rabbi Yoner said. That's only, he qualifies it further. He says, Rosa Megabel Eitzel Acher. That's where they see that the Misarech is present of mind. That's when we see a chaver who comes to the Baal Boss's house. Presumably the Baal Boss's house, not a chaver. If he was a chaver, it wouldn't be an issue, right? But we see a Baal Boss who comes into the chaver's house, and I guess they had chaverim who were appointed for this specific purpose, and took off his challah b'tara. Since he has this person who comes and takes off his challah b'tara, mistam it's makpid and tamai as well. Presume that this person is meticulous, even though he himself is not a chaver, but he has a chaver come and take off his challah, so mistam he takes off tamai as well. Okay, now, but what about in Syria? Going back to Syria, in Syria, but even if you're purchasing from a Baal Boss, you don't have to take off chalas d'mai. Why? Because we assume that most of the produce in even Syria, which is this in between. So Chutzlaretz category, but even there, most of it comes from Goyim, and we know the produce of Goyim is potter. So therefore, we assume that he bought this from the Goy, and therefore it's potter from Meiser, right? It doesn't take off chalas d'mai, and the challah that the Kohen gets from a Baal Boss in Syria doesn't have to take off the mai because we assume that it comes from a non-Jew. So there's no blanket takon of the mai in Chutzlaretz, like we said, and even in Syria. So therefore, you just assume it's okay, unless im yodea shero machnosa mishalo. If we know that most of his produce is personal. Baal grows his own grain, and most of the grain he uses is his personal stockpile. In that case, all bets are off. In that case, we assume that we have to assume that. Potentially, there's missing Shumas Maisvus, and it's not a blanket gzeira, but in that case, you have to take off the mai from, and even from the challah, right? Even challah mai. So we're asked, and now we get back to the question with which we finished yesterday. Right? Why do you take off the mai? What about Rabbi Yeshua? So therefore, like we asked yesterday, let Ram Gamliel, Rebbe, introduce my chutzlaretz as a blanket takana, but we still have to worry about the challah. Because the challah is emas kochim l'amaretz. Rav Mana said no. Kam ba'aretz, kam b'chutz la'aretz. In Eretz Yisrael, emas kochim l'amaretz. In chutz la'aretz, we don't say emas kochim l'amaretz because even the amaretz knows it's not a real kochim. It's chutz la'aretz. So therefore, since that's the case, were there to be a takara of the mai in chutz la'aretz in Syria, so then we would not have been able to be made by the challah because they have to say. Emas Kochim doesn't apply here. It's chutzlaretz. It's even in Syria. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi said to not let Rebbe institute the takana of the Mai in Syria, and Stam is on this basis that we assume that most of the produce anyway in chutzlaretz, and even in Syria, comes from the non-Jews. So therefore, we don't need to institute chalas the Mai. That we don't need to institute takana of the Mai, and the coin does not have to be chash al chalas. So you need challah without having to take off the Mai. Now we get back to the next part, which has to do the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Chuna Amar Kini Mastis is way to understand our Mishnah. Migziva Aranor, Migziva Aramnam. These are areas north of Eretz Yisrael which are only conquered by Olam Mitzrayim, and there are 2 points on the map from Ksiva to the Euphrates River, which is kind of north, and Ksiva Aramnam, which is kind of north, if I recall correctly, northeast. Just look at the map. No, according to the map on the art scroll, the Omna is on the banks of the Mediterranean. I guess the Nahar is the Euphrates further to the east, so the other way around. Okay, Tani, Ezu Yaretz, Ezu Chutzlaretz. What is considered to be Eretz and what's considered to be Chutzlaretz? So now we're actually referencing the what's in the Mediterranean. Now, I don't know how many islands there actually are, and they're tiny islands. But we're talking about the islands which are in the Mediterranean, in the waters of Eretz. So what's considered part of Eretz Yisrael? So it says Tavras Amnam L'chutz is chutzlaretz, and Tavras Amnam, which the mountain of Amram, it seems to be Amnam, which, like I said, seems to be on the Mediterranean coast, and beyond is chutzlaretz, right? So obviously it's out in the waters of the Mediterranean. What's the difference? Hanis and Shebayam, the islands in the sea. Look at it as if there's a string which goes from Tavras Amram down to Nachem Mitzrayim. We don't know exactly Nachem Mitzrayim is, whether it's near El Arish, whether it's somewhere else. But in any event, you look and make a diagonal line in the ocean, in the Mediterranean Sea, and that all the islands within that diagonal line are considered to be part of Eretz Yisrael for the purpose of Shumas Hamaisos. It's not a great map, but there is a map here. Anything which is in the shaded area, going from Amnam on the top to Nachem Mitzrayim down here, the shaded areas off the coast. Those islands in there are in parts of Eretz Yisrael. Yehuda Omer, Real Shita is also brought down in the Bavli and with the Kitten, that the coach who connected Eretz Yisrael, Harayok Eretz Yisrael. Anything opposite Eretz Yisrael going outwards into the Mediterranean is considered to be part of Eretz Yisrael. And here you have a map. It's not particularly a good map either, but in other words, anything you extend, don't make a diagonal line going up and down. Go a straight line. And the Pasha says, as we'll see in a moment, it doesn't include Miami or whatever else is opposite Eretz Yisrael in America. It just goes to the Straits of Gibraltar. The Mediterranean Sea and its boundary will all be right? That makes the that's included. So the way he puts here that the extra word gvul teaches us anything opposite the the space of Eretz Yisrael is part and parcel of Eretz Yisrael, up to the ocean. Shemitztanim at Ros on Shemitztanim Mahin. What about the sides? At Ros and Kiluchud Matom Mikafloria ad Okeanos. You see that as if there's a string which goes from Kafloria, which is the mountain which sits near near Amnam, all the way to the Mediterranean. Again, as I say, the Straits of Gibraltar, anything included in that boundary, which goes straight out, which I think would include Cyprus, has the status of Eretz Yisrael. Minachal, the same idea. That's on the north side. The south side, Menachem Mitzrayim, Barakianos, Mechulivnim, Eretz Yisrael. Also, the over Menachem Mitzrayim straight out towards the west, and anything from on the inside of the of that string, north of it is Eretz Yisrael. Me'achut v'lachutz is chutzlars. Anything outside, beyond that, is considered to be chutzlars. When the kibbutz Golios occurs, and the Golios come down from Turkey into Lebanon, and they get to Tuvus Amnam and see Lamar Shira. They're going to start singing. So obviously a song praising their redemption, as it says in Shir Shirim, to Shuri Mirosh Amona. So Shuri, actually I think it means in the Pashim shot to see, to behold, but the Yerushalmi is if it means Tashiri, you're going to sing when you get to the to the area of Amdam. And that brings us well on to Daf Mem Hey, so we will stop here for today.